Entering the ancient world tonight, there is no rush, no battles to follow, no empires collapsing, no dates to memorize, only the slow rhythm of an ancient world, where wealth was quiet and time moved like warm air across stone. Close your eyes, if you like. Imagine standing at the edge of a wide river, the Euphrates, or perhaps the Tigris, where water glides past reeds and reflects a sky untouched by modern light. This is the ancient Middle East, not the one of legends and wars, but the one of daily life, the one lived by those who never lifted a plow, never carried bricks, never worried about their next meal. This is the world of the wealthy. What wealth meant. Before money in the ancient world, wealth was not numbers written on paper. It was physical, tangible, heavy. Wealth meant land that could grow grain year after year. It meant animals that reproduced. It meant storage rooms filled with jars of oil, dates, barley, and wine. It meant influence, quiet influence, over people, labor, and time. The wealthy didn't hurry. They woke when the sun was already warm. They ate when hungry, not when clocks demanded. They rested when tired. Time itself was their greatest luxury. Geography of comfort. The richest families lived where the land itself worked for them, near rivers that flooded gently each year, near trade routes where caravans passed slowly, bells chiming softly on camels. Homes were placed carefully, not too close to noise, not too far from water. Always catching the breeze, mud brick walls were thick, insulating against heat. Roofs were flat, used in the evening for rest beneath the stars. The wealthy shaped their environment to feel calm, not impressive. The homes of the wealthy, a wealthy home was built inward, not outward. From the street, it appeared plain, but inside, it opened like a secret. A central courtyard held everything together. There might be a small tree, a pool reflecting the sky, or birds resting in the shade. Rooms opened into this space, allowing light without exposure. The air was cooler here, quieter. Footsteps echoed softly on stone floors. Every detail was intentional. Daily rhythms of the upper-class morning came slowly. Servants entered quietly with bowls of water for washing. A light meal followed. Flatbread, figs, honey, maybe goat cheese. There was no rush. Some mornings were spent listening to reports from stewards. Others were devoted to conversation or contemplation. The wealthy did not measure success by productivity. They measured it by balance. Clothing, fabric, and the language of appearance in the ancient Middle East. Clothing was not about fashion. It was about belonging, comfort, and quiet status. The wealthy did not dress to impress strangers. They dressed to feel at ease within their world. Fabrics were the true luxury. Linen woven so finely it felt like air against the skin. Wool softened through careful washing and time. Occasionally, cotton brought by traders from distant lands. Dyes were rare and precious. Deep blues from crushed minerals. Warm reds from insects harvested carefully by hand. Soft earth tones made from clay and plants. Colors faded gently over time, and that softness was admired. Clothing was loose, flowing, and layered, designed to move with the body, not restrict it. There was no hurry here. Jewelry was worn lightly. A ring carved with a family seal. A bracelet passed down through generations. Earrings that caught the sun when someone turned their head. Perfume was essential. Not overwhelming, but present. A trace of myrrh on the wrists. Frankincense woven into oil for the hair. Scents meant calm, cleanliness, and divine favor. To smell pleasant was to be civilized. Food was not rushed. It was prepared with patience, and eaten with presence. In wealthy households, kitchens were busy long before meals began. Grain was ground slowly. Vegetables were washed carefully. Meat was cooked low and slow, often in stews that simmered for hours. Spices came from far away: cumin, coriander, cinnamon, each one a quiet reminder of trade routes stretching across deserts and seas. Meals were eaten seated or reclining, often on cushions near low tables. There was no clatter, no urgency. Bread was torn gently, not cut. Food was shared, passed hand to hand. Conversation drifted easily. Stories, reflections, memories. Silence was welcome too. To eat slowly was a sign of wealth. Only those with time could savor flavor. The comfort of the wealthy depended on many unseen hands. Servants rose early and slept late. They swept courtyards, drew water, tended fires, prepared food, and kept homes cool. But in many households, their presence was quiet, almost ceremonial. Movements were practiced and respectful. A well-run home was one where servants were rarely noticed, not because they were ignored, but because everything flowed smoothly. Orders were often given softly. The wealthiest did not shout. They spoke gently, expecting to be heard. Some servants lived their entire lives within the same household, becoming part of its rhythm, its memory. The line between family and service could blur, especially over generations. Education was one of the greatest luxuries. To read and write meant freedom from physical labor. Children of wealthy families learned symbols, numbers, and language, often taught by scribes. Writing was slow and careful. Each mark mattered. Clay tablets, reeds, ink, all handled with patience. Learning was not rushed. Stories were memorized, genealogies preserved, poems repeated aloud until they became part of the breath. Education was not about ambition. It was about understanding one's place in the world. To think deeply was a privilege. Leisure was not laziness. It was considered a sign of balance. The wealthy walked through gardens in the early evening. They listened to musicians playing soft strings or flutes. They watched shadows stretch across walls. Some played board games. Others simply sat, observing life move around them. Doing nothing was not empty. It was full of awareness. Moments were meant to be felt, not filled. Power in ancient wealthy households was rarely loud. It came from stability, from being reliable, from honoring agreements, from hosting others well. Influence grew slowly, like a tree. Those who shouted were often insecure. Those who whispered were trusted. A wealthy person's greatest strength was calm confidence. They knew where they belonged. Evening descends as the sun lowered. The heat softened. Shadows stretched across stone floors. Oil lamps were lit, one by one. Their light flickered gently, turning walls golden. Dinner was lighter than the midday meal. Afterward came conversation, or quiet. Some gazed upward as stars appeared one by one, unchanged for thousands of years. Others closed their eyes, listening to the distant sounds of the city settling into rest. The day did not end abruptly. It slowly dissolved. Wealth, meaning, and the long view of life belief. Without fear in the ancient Middle East, belief was not loud. It did not demand attention or spectacle. For the wealthy, faith was woven gently into daily life, like breathing, like the passing of time. Small shrines rested in corners of the home, a simple statue, a bowl for offerings, a flame kept alive with care. There was no urgency in worship. Prayers were not shouted. They were whispered, sometimes not spoken at all. Belief was less about fear of punishment and more about balance. A good life was one lived in harmony. With the land, with the seasons, with the unseen forces that moved quietly beneath everything. Offerings were made not out of desperation, but gratitude. A portion of bread, a bit of wine, a flower placed gently at dawn. The wealthy believed the universe noticed restraint. The beauty of stillness, beauty was not something to chase. It was something to notice. A beam of sunlight crossing the floor, the sound of wind through reeds, the slow arc of the moon rising over rooftops. Art reflected this stillness. Carvings were subtle, paintings simple, symbolic, music soft and unhurried. A single note, held long enough, could say more than a chorus. Beauty was not meant to impress, only to soothe. And so the wealthy surrounded themselves with quiet beauty, allowing their senses to rest. Time was not an enemy. There were no clocks ticking loudly, only shadows marking the hour, bells in the distance, the natural rhythm of light and dark. Aging was accepted. Gray hair was not hidden. Slower steps were not shameful. Elders were respected not for power, but for memory. They remembered droughts, floods, long journeys, lost loved ones. They remembered what endured. To grow old was to become a living archive. Family mattered deeply, but not loudly. Children were raised within layers of care. Parents, servants, elders. They learned by watching, by listening, by absorbing the rhythms of daily life. Stories were passed down at night, spoken softly in lamplight. Not heroic tales of conquest, but stories of patience, kindness, survival. The wealthy understood that legacy was not about monuments. It was about continuity. That life would go on, gently, after they were gone. As years passed, many wealthy elders withdrew from daily affairs, not in sadness, but in peace. They trusted the world to continue. They sat longer in the shade, spoke less, listened more. Their presence became calming, a reminder that not everything needs doing. Sometimes simply being is enough. As night approaches, the city softens. Footsteps fade. Voices grow distant. Doors close with gentle finality. Oil lamps flicker like small stars along narrow streets. The air cools. From rooftops, one can see the sky clearly. Vast and endless. The same stars that watched over ancestors and will watch over descendants yet to come. Time feels wide here. Inside the wealthy home, everything slows. Servants retire quietly. Curtains are drawn. Animals settle. A final lamp glows in the courtyard. Shadows stretch and blend. The home breathes. Warm stone releasing the heat of the day. Nothing is hurried. Nothing is missing. Sleep and the soft end of the day sleep arrives gently, not as an escape, but as a continuation. The body rests. The mind drifts. Thoughts loosen their grip. There is no urgency tomorrow, only another day shaped by light, shade, and calm. Outside, the night holds everything safely. The last thought long after names fade, long after walls crumble. This way of living lingers, in the idea that a good life does not need to be loud, that peace is a form of wealth, that time, when allowed to slow, becomes kind. And as the ancient world rests beneath the stars, you may rest too.